The silent awakening. The Krillian Empire had ruled the galaxy for over 3,000 years. Their massive warships, each the size of a small moon, had crushed every rebellion and silenced every world that dared to resist. 50 years ago, when Earth had suddenly ceased all military operations and retreated to their home system, the Empire celebrated it as their greatest victory. The humans, those strange bipedal creatures from the third planet of a yellow star, had finally learned their place. Admiral Zixter stood in the command center of the Imperial flagship Dominion's Edge, his 6 arms crossed behind his chitinous back. His compound eyes reflected the holographic display showing the Outer Rim territories. Everything appeared peaceful, exactly as it had been for half a century. The humans had kept to their agreement, staying within their solar system, sending no ships beyond Neptune's orbit, and maintaining complete radio silence except for basic trade communications. But something felt wrong. "Admiral," came the voice of his aide, Subcommander Krillix. "We've lost contact with Patrol Fleet Gamma 7. Zixter's mandibles clicked with irritation. "Equipment failure. Negative, sir. Their last transmission was routine. They were investigating some debris near the Helix Nebula, then ... nothing. Complete communications blackout." The Admiral's primary eyes focused on the star chart. The Helix Nebula was nowhere near human space. Almost 200 light-years from Earth. There was no reason for concern. Yet something about the report made his exoskeleton prickle with unease. Far away on Earth, in a facility buried 3 miles beneath the Canadian Rockies, Commander Sarah Chen watched the same star chart on her display. But her version showed things the Krillians could never see. Hidden bases, cloaked ships, and sleeping giants that had waited 5 decades for this moment. "Gamma 7 is neutralized," reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Morrison. "Clean. Sweep. No survivors, no evidence, no traces." Sarah nodded grimly. For 50 years, Earth had played the role of the defeated, broken species. They had allowed the Empire to believe that humanity's spirit was crushed, that their technology was primitive, that their military was disbanded. It had been the greatest deception in galactic history. The truth was far different. When Earth had surrendered, they had actually implemented Protocol Lazarus, named after the biblical figure who rose from the dead. While the Empire celebrated their victory, humanity had been building, preparing, and evolving. Not just technologically, but philosophically. They had learned that sometimes the only way to win was to let your enemy think they had already won. Dr. Marcus Webb, Earth's leading xenobiologist and weapons designer, stood beside Sarah in the command center. His weathered face bore the scars of the First Krillian War, but his eyes burned with cold determination. "The Krillians think in terms of brute force and overwhelming numbers," he said quietly. "They've never understood that humans fight differently. When we're truly cornered, the facility around them hummed with activity. Thousands of the brightest minds humanity had ever produced worked in shifts around the clock. They had spent 50 years studying every piece of Krillian technology they could acquire, reverse engineering it, improving it, and then surpassing it entirely. The weapons they had created defied conventional physics. The ships they had built existed in dimensions the Empire couldn't even detect. "Sir," came another voice from the communications array. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Sleeper Station Alpha." Sarah turned toward the main screen as it flickered to life. The face that appeared belonged to Captain Rodriguez, commander of one of Earth's most classified projects. His expression was grim but determined. "Commander Chen, the Lazarus is fully operational. All primary systems are green. We're ready to begin Phase 2 on your command. The Lazarus was humanity's first true masterpiece of their hidden war effort. It wasn't just a ship. It was something entirely new, built using technology that combined human ingenuity with principles borrowed from theoretical physics. It could exist in multiple dimensional phases simultaneously. To conventional sensors, it appeared as empty space. To quantum detectors, it looked like cosmic background radiation. But when it chose to reveal itself, it could unleash destruction on a scale that would make the Empire's greatest weapons look like children's toys. Back aboard the Dominion's edge, Admiral Zixter was growing increasingly agitated. 3 more patrol fleets had gone missing in the past 6 hours, all in different sectors, all far from any known human activity. The disappearances followed no logical pattern, and there were no distress signals, no debris fields, no evidence of battle. Admiral, his chief intelligence officer, approached with obvious reluctance. We've completed our analysis of the missing fleet's last known positions. There appears to be no connection between them. But ... double quotes, but what? Zixter's voice carried a dangerous edge. Sir, if we project the locations onto a 3-dimensional map and account for temporal displacement, the positions form a perfect sphere around our core territories. It's as if something is systematically eliminating our outer defenses. The Admiral's blood ran cold. In 3,000 years of conquest, the Empire had never faced an enemy capable of such precise coordinated strikes across such vast distances. The logistics alone should have been impossible. Increase all patrols to maximum alert status, he ordered. I want every ship equipped with our most advanced sensors, and send a message to the High Command. Tell them we may have a situation, but even as he gave the orders, Zixter knew it was probably too late. Whatever was hunting his fleets possessed technology and tactics far beyond anything in the Empire's experience. For the first time in his military career, the Admiral felt something he had never experienced before: genuine fear. On Earth, Sarah Chen received the report of the Empire's heightened alert status with satisfaction. Everything was proceeding exactly according to plan. The Krillians were reacting predictably, increasing their patrols and consolidating their forces. They were so focused on protecting their outer territories that they hadn't noticed the real threat. Dr. Webb approached her console, his expression thoughtful. Sarah, are you sure we're ready for this? Once we reveal ourselves, there's no going back. The Empire will throw everything they have at us. Sarah turned to face him, her expression resolute. Marcus, 50 years ago, they bombed our colonies. They killed millions of innocent people, including children. They thought they could break us by showing us their superior firepower. But they made one critical mistake. What's that? They forgot that humans are at their most dangerous when they have nothing left to lose. Except we didn't lose everything. We just made them think we did. The command center's main display suddenly lit up with incoming data streams from across the galaxy. Hidden observation posts, secret bases, and camouflaged ships that had been silent for decades were coming online. The network was vast, spanning hundreds of star systems, and it had been invisible to the Empire's surveillance for half a century. All stations report ready, announced Lieutenant Morrison. The entire network is active and awaiting orders. Sarah looked at the display showing the true extent of humanity's hidden empire. Secret colonies that had been officially destroyed were thriving. Research stations disguised as asteroid mining operations had been developing weapons of unimaginable power. Ships that were supposedly decommissioned had been upgraded with technology that made them virtually undetectable. But the most impressive achievement was the Sleeper Fleet. Hundreds of massive vessels, each one larger and more powerful than anything the Empire had ever built, had been constructed in the void between galaxies. They had been waiting, engines cold, crews in suspended animation, for the day when humanity would need them. That day had finally come. "Open a channel to all stations," Sarah commanded. "This is Commander Chen. Authorization, Lazarus Sub. The sleeping giant awakens. All units, prepare for Phase 3. We're going home." Across the galaxy, in the depths of space where no Empire sensors could reach, thousands of human vessels began to stir. Engines that had been dormant for decades hummed to life. Weapons, systems that defied known physics, charged their exotic matter cores. And in the deepest reaches of the void, something truly massive began to move. The Empire had spent 50 years believing they had conquered humanity. They were about to learn that humanity had spent those same 50 years preparing to return the favor. The storm unleashes. Admiral Zixter stood before the assembled high command of the Krillian Empire, his confidence shaken for the first time in his distinguished career. The massive chamber, carved from a single piece of crystallized starlight, had witnessed the planning of countless campaigns of conquest. Today, it bore witness to something unprecedented: confusion and fear among the Empire's greatest military minds. "Report, Admiral," commanded Supreme Marshal Vexhara, her voice echoing through the chamber with the authority of absolute power. Zixter activated the holographic display, showing the current state of the Empire's outer territories. Red zones marked the locations of missing fleets, and there were far too many of them. "In the past 48 hours, we have lost contact with 37 patrol fleets, totaling over 1,500 ships. There have been no distress calls, no debris fields, no survivors. They simply ... vanished." The assembled generals and admirals shifted uneasily. Marshal Kethron, veteran of the Andromedan campaign, leaned forward. Could this be some kind of natural phenomenon, a previously unknown spatial anomaly? "Negative," Zixter replied grimly. "Our science division has analyzed the disappearance patterns. The precision and coordination required could only be achieved by an intelligence with detailed knowledge of our fleet movements and patrol schedules." Supreme Marshal Vexhara's 6 eyes narrowed to slits. "Are you suggesting we have a traitor among us?" "No, Marshal. I'm suggesting we have an enemy we don't understand." Before anyone could respond, the chamber's emergency klaxons began wailing. A junior officer burst through the main doors, his exoskeleton clicking with panic. "Supreme Marshal, long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures emerging from deep space. They're enormous." The holographic display shifted to show the galaxy's outer rim. Slowly, like ancient titans awakening from slumber, colossal shapes began to materialize from the void. Ships of impossible size and design, their hulls gleaming with an oily black substance that seemed to absorb light itself. They moved with purpose, forming attack formations that spoke of military discipline and advanced tactical thinking. "By the void," whispered Marshal Kethron, "how many of them are there?" The tactical officer's voice trembled as he responded. "Current count is over 3,000 vessels, Supreme Marshal, and they're still emerging." But the true shock came when the lead ship began broadcasting on all frequencies. The message was simple, delivered in perfect Krillian, but the voice that spoke, it was unmistakably human. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Network. 50 years ago, you believed you had defeated humanity. You were wrong. We withdrew, not in defeat, but but in preparation. Today, we return not as the conquered, but as the reckoning you have earned. The transmission cut to silence, leaving the High Command in stunned disbelief. Supreme Marshal Vex was the first to recover her composure. Impossible. The humans surrendered. We monitored their system for decades. They have no fleet, no technology capable of this. Admiral Zixter's mandibles clicked nervously. Marshal, with respect, perhaps we monitored what they wanted us to see. Aboard the flagship Eternal Lazarus, Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge watching the Krillian Empire's core worlds come into view. The bridge itself was a marvel of human engineering, combining organic curves with crystalline computing matrices that processed information faster than any purely mechanical system could. Around her, the most skilled officers humanity had ever produced worked with calm efficiency. Status report, Sarah requested. All Sleeper Fleet vessels are operational and in formation, reported Captain Martinez from the navigation station. Phase drives are synchronized, and exotic matter reserves are at full capacity. Dr. Webb approached from the science station, his expression mixing pride with grim determination. Sarah, the quantum displacement cannons are ready. Each shot can phase an entire enemy fleet out of normal space-time. They'll simply cease to exist in this dimension. Sarah nodded. The weapons humanity had developed during their 50 years of apparent defeat were beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. They had studied the fundamental forces of the universe, itself learning to manipulate matter and energy in ways that bordered on the supernatural. The Krillians, for all their technological advancement, still thought in terms of conventional physics. Incoming transmission from the Empire's flagship, announced Lieutenant Chen from communications. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, revealing Admiral Zixter in his command chamber. His usual arrogance was replaced by barely controlled panic. Human vessel, I am Admiral Zixter of the Imperial Navy. State your intentions immediately. Sarah stepped forward, her expression calm but implacable. Admiral, our intentions are simple. 50 years ago, your empire attacked our colonies without provocation. You murdered millions of innocent civilians, including children, to demonstrate your power. You believed this would break our spirit and force us into submission. Zixter's compound eyes darted nervously. The humans agreed to the peace terms. The matter was settled. The matter was postponed, Sarah corrected coldly. We needed time to ensure that when we responded, it would be final and complete. You taught us that the galaxy respects only overwhelming force. We learned that lesson well. Behind Sarah, the bridge officers worked with quiet efficiency. The Sleeper Fleet had arranged itself in a formation that surrounded the Empire's core. Systems completely. Every escape route was blocked, every defensive position flanked. It was a tactical masterpiece, 50 years in the making. What do you want? Zixter demanded, his voice cracking with strain. Sarah's expression didn't change. Justice, reparations, and assurance that the Empire will never again mistake mercy for weakness. The Admiral's mandibles clicked frantically. You cannot seriously believe you can defeat the entire Empire with a few hundred ships, no matter how large they are. A few hundred. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Admiral, you're only seeing our advanced scouts. She gestured to Dr. Webb, who activated a new display. The tactical screen expanded to show not just the immediate area, but the entire galaxy. Across thousands of star systems, more human vessels began decloaking. The true scope of humanity's hidden empire became visible for the first time. Secret colonies that had been officially destroyed were revealed to be thriving industrial centers. Hidden shipyards in the void between galaxies showed thousands more vessels under construction. Research stations, disguised as natural phenomena, unveiled weapons that defied comprehension. But the most shocking revelation was the network itself. Humanity hadn't just built ships and weapons during their 50 years of exile. They had built an intelligence network that penetrated every level of Empire society. Human agents, some of them surgically altered to appear as other species, had been gathering information and positioning themselves for decades. "My God," Admiral Zixter whispered as the true scope of the human preparation became clear. "You've been planning this for 50 years. "We've been preparing for this for 50 years, Sarah corrected. "The planning began the moment your fleets opened fire on our colonies." Across the Empire's core worlds, panic began to spread as the reality of the situation became clear. The humans hadn't been conquered 50 years ago. They had strategically withdrawn to prepare for a war that would end the conflict permanently. Every piece of technology the Empire had shared during the peace years had been studied, reverse-engineered, and improved upon. Every diplomatic meeting had been an intelligence-gathering operation. Every trade agreement had been cover for positioning strategic assets. The Empire had been living within a web of human preparation for half a century without realizing it. Supreme Marshal Admiral Zixter transmitted to the High Command, "I recommend immediate surrender negotiations. The humans have technological and tactical superiority on a scale we cannot match." But Supreme Marshal Vexhara's response was predictable. "All fleets converge on the core worlds. We will show these mammals what the Empire's true strength." Looks like it was exactly what Sarah had expected. The Empire's arrogance would be its downfall. As Krillian fleets from across the galaxy began moving toward the core systems, they were walking into a trap 50 years in the making. "Dr. Webb," Sarah said quietly, "activate the Harbinger protocol. In the deepest regions of space, where matter itself became thin and reality grew malleable, something ancient and vast began to stir. It was humanity's greatest secret, their ultimate weapon. Not a ship or a device, but something far more profound. During their 50 years of apparent defeat, human scientists had learned to harness the fundamental forces that governed existence itself. The Krillian Empire was about to discover that there are some victories that cost far more than defeat ever could. As the first Empire reinforcement fleets arrived in the core systems, they found themselves facing not just human ships, but reality itself turned against them. Space bent around the human vessels, time moved differently in their presence, and the very laws of physics seemed to favor them. The war that followed would be remembered not as a battle between species, but as the day humanity showed the galaxy that some sleeping giants should never be awakened.